Aloha, Cupcakes. So far, I've been doing a bunch of brush tests, and I've been doing these essentially for people that already understand and know how to use these brushes. Problem with that is that not all of you know how to use these brushes. Yes, I'm looking at you. Like, really? I didn't know you didn't know. So, let's go over some of the basics with the blue wrap and the green wrap Mac brushes. Shall we?
So let's start with the differences between these brushes, because there are some seemingly big differences. Like, for example, this is a blue wrap. I know it's a little grimy looking, and this is the best camera angle I can get with a dry erase board. This is a green wrap. Also, you're just gonna have to trust me that they're blue and green. This is the best coloring I was able to get with it. Now, this one's a sword striper. Look at that, because it's shaped like a sword. Now, this one also sword striper. So don't get that confused. They're not daggers. They're not anything. They're sword stripers. It means that they paint on one side of the brush. And well, this one here, as you can see, it's kind of floofy. Thusly, it is more coarse and it's a little thicker. Or, I mean, thicker ones are typically kind of coarse. Now it's it's a little bit, not a lot of it. It looks like it's a lot, but it really isn't. Now this one's a little bit softer, and the hairs themselves are actually thinner. So that's our differences. But guess what? Both, and I do mean both, can pinstripe. Yeah, believe it or not, they both can do the same job. It's magic. I know. Super complicated. You're going to get a lot of people with a lot of opinions about this, but realistically, they both do the exact same job. And when you're starting out, it's not that big a deal. I mean, even this video, this is going to get annoying later, and I'll come back to why it's annoying. But we'll talk about this later. Just trust me on this. Just hang out. You'll get it. Now I'm going to start. I'm putting some Alpha 6 blue. I think it's just their regular blue. I put it in a cup because this stuff has a tendency to dry really quick. So I put it in the cup. I put a little bit of reducer in here. And then once I get it comfortable to where I've completely covered the brush, I palette out. Now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to smooth this out. So I'm trying to get rid of bubbles. I'm trying to get it to where it'll pull a sort of line. And I just want to make sure that it's not globby. I want to make sure that it pulls smooth. So when you're pulling through this, you want to try a couple test lines. Like that one was actually okay. And I think I'm painting on the wrong side of this brush. All right, let's try it. Let's just give it a shot here. And when I go to pull a line, especially my first line, I am almost always pulling a straight line just because I want to run the brush out. Now, this is for practice purposes, not necessarily when you're doing a design. And I'm going to take my time with this. So I'm going to pull slowly, and while I'm doing this, I'm focusing entirely on keeping the tip as the only point of contact on the paper that I'm working with here. And I'm trying to control my breathing as much as possible. Not necessarily breathing slowly, just breathing steadily. We could talk about that on a different video if you want to, because I hope you know how to breathe at this point. And I'm just gonna do a few of these. I think in this video I only do like 2 actual ones. And then I stop this one halfway. Now the reason that I stop this one halfway is because I don't want to just practice straight lines today. Because we're gonna do a little bit of a design. Not a lot of design. It's not gonna be super heavy or anything like that, but we're going to play with it a little bit because I would get bored. I have to make this video fun for me too, right? You know, can't just do straight lines over and over again. So we're going to pull a little bit. Now, when I do these little short lines, I like to hold the brush upright. You don't have to if you're comfortable laying the whole brush down. But I find that when you hold it upright this way, you have a little bit more control in terms of how you're able to turn it. And then when I come back in with it, well, here, let's fix that first. It's okay to fix your mistakes, by the way. You can go over your own pinstripes. You just have to be very cautious with how you do it. And I think we're making decisions, okay? So that's where the little hesitation there in my hand is, because I wasn't sure if I want to spin all the way out or if I want to just follow this. And then I decided to follow it. That's how we got the little curvy, whatever that is. You'll notice in between each stripe, I also go and I repalette. I am not doing this to add more paint to my brush. I am doing this to freshen up the tip on this one because it is the green wrap. It is a very coarse brush, and it kind of flares out a little bit the longer you pull with it. So just know that you can just drag it through the paint to sharpen it back up. You don't have to like squeegee it off unless you're overloading your brush. And I have a tendency to not overload my brush, like the opposite. I tend to underload my brush. You'll know it when it's overloaded. It'll be floppy. It'll just be dripping in paint, and that's not where you want to be. With me, I usually don't go that direction. I go the opposite. Most people tend to overload. See that little that's where it flared out. So this brush doesn't want to pull the really tight turns the way that my hand moves. It's not, and that's okay. We're just kind of work around it. But when I'm pulling these sharper curves, when I'm pulling in tighter, I like to lift the brush up just a bit more. And then I'll come and lay down with a couple extra straight lines. And again, the whole time I'm just focused entirely on the bead of paint coming off just the tip. And that's all I'm looking for. I did cut the audio, but there was like I was listening to some pretty gnarly grindcore while I was doing this. So it's super loud in here. So the concept of relaxing music, sure. Okay, you can. I don't. I would love to include that in the soundtrack of all of these videos, but you have to get licensing to use other people's music. Imagine like Napalm Death to this. But no. Also, maybe don't go straight to like full on like grindcore. It's not the most relaxing thing. For you, sissies. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. We'll come back to it though. So again, I'm just paleting out to sharpen up the tip so that I can come and just get right on it and very gingerly stay on that tip and pull very slowly, like nap time slowly. And this brush, by the way, it is very thick. So for me to pull lines this thin and clean, it is a challenge for me. So if you're using one of these green wraps, if you have the luxury of getting the 000, or if there's anything, I don't think it goes smaller than 000, but do it. Just trust me on this one. The thicker this brush is, the more paint it's going to dump when you pull a line, even as you're controlling it. And it's just going to take you longer to learn with that. I mean, if you can pull it with a number 2 and you can pull some clean lines with that, hey, that's on you. Go for it. But I think for most people, a 000 is probably going to be a lot easier for you to control. And like I said, though, if you got a number 2 and that's all you've got, run with it. Because I stripe with a number 2 quite frequently, especially if I'm doing straight lines, because I want something that holds a ton of paint. Now let's go to this blue wrap here. I'm going to shift things over a little bit, kind of, sort of. Sure. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it exactly where it is because I want to try to mirror this. But for this one, I'm going to use red. Red is traditionally a little bit inconsistent, I will say. Not just with alpha, just in general. Red has its issues. It always has. So red tends to fade a lot quicker than the other paints, and it has some consistency issues across brands. But they collectively always annoy me. Like right now when the paint's jammed up. I honestly thought I cut this clip out of the video. Anyhow, I fixed it eventually with a screwdriver and a little bit of cussing. But once we got paint in the cup, I'm going to do the same thing. Just add a little bit of reducer. I'm going to get it all over the brush, and I may have put too much reducer, but it can be drippy. It's fine. And then I'm just going to palette it out, try to get it smooth. And I don't want any bubbles in it. And I'm just going to tell you right now, any angle you see from this camera, yeah, I didn't do that on purpose. It's kind of way over there, but I cleaned it up as well as I could, but you can't really see from the other camera. So yeah, that's a little okay. We'll just say that it's a David Fincher move. Okay. David Fincher's a director. He makes a lot of really great movies. And if you haven't seen one, fix that. Fight Club, for example. And just like I did before, I'm going to pull a straight line. And what I'm really doing for the purpose of this straight line is I'm running out the brush. I want to make sure that it is consistent. And if it isn't, this is where I will correct that. It's consistent, but as much as this is a finer and sharper brush, I have really over reduced my paint. So it's a lot thicker and a lot waterier. It's moist. Yeah, if you're new here, the M word is definitely a thing with me because I know how many people cringe every time I say moist. So I'm going to keep using it. Anyhow, so when it's over reduced the way that it is, it's going to tend to do that thing at the top of that line, and then it's just going to be super wet, which takes all of the additional control I have from having this brush out of the equation. And now it's painting as though it's a thicker brush. So just food for thought. You can still work with it. I'm working with it right now, but it definitely is not working to your favor. Unless, of course, you're having drying issues. At which point, if it's drying too fast, then yes, reduce it a little extra. Because it's fine. It's just paint. Like, you're the artist here. Especially if you're just practicing and you're just starting out. No one is going to be able to tell you that, you reduced it too far. Or you didn't reduce it enough. Like, they're just going to be like, okay, good. I'm glad you're pinstriping. Good for you. Unless it's, certain other people. They criticize me too, though. So don't let that get to you. Now, this brush being a little bit thinner, I am staying a lot more on the tip, but I don't really have to. I can lay this brush down and dig into it a lot more than I could with the other one. It's just that I kind of reduced this paint way too far, and that's also part of the paletting thing. If you palette it out and you just start sliding across to where it's like the fresh paper, it will dry your paint out quicker. So like this line right here is a lot more controlled because I'm starting to dry out a lot more. So, and that's how I'm able to get right there. See how that's like kind of sharp? That's the first time it's actually sharp. It's because I'm getting to the right density of paint. So, also, if you didn't see how sharp that was, rewind it and go look. Yes, I used the word rewind, despite the fact that this isn't a digital format and you don't have a tape. That's fine. You know what I meant. Well, unless you've never had a VHS tape, at which point I'm sad that you missed out on that. Blockbuster was fun. Now, the last step on this one, and before I'm actually done doing this, and the last thing I want you to understand about this was when I hold this thing upright, I am still writing on just the tip. I don't want to lay the whole brush down just yet because this is for practice purposes, and I want to keep things as sharp as possible. So just stay on the tip even when you're pulling those tight curves. Actually, especially when you're pulling those tight curves, because it's you'll see exactly why not to the first time you do it. So also do it. Try it a couple times. You want to see what it looks like so you know what you're looking for and you know what your tolerance level for that is. It is important. Why I have one greasy fingerprint. Just why. I'm sure that I see other ones, actually. Don't do that. Wash your hands. Or actually, don't. It's pain. You'd be compulsively washing your hands. And this will be the last line right here. But check this out. I had a lot of fun with this one because I didn't think it was going to work. So I dropped the tip a little too soon. And then I didn't quite meet the two lines where I wanted them to. But because the paint's super wet, it still worked out just fine. Hooray!
So there we are, the Mac 10 and the Mac 20. I went through it. I hope this helps. And by all means, put in the comments any questions that I didn't go over, because there's probably a chance I missed stuff. There's also a ton of videos here on this channel that might also be helpful and or useful to you, but you're gonna have to look. I can't do that part for you. Sorry. Till next video, stay moist, my friends.